All right, and welcome to The Elderly, Our Future Alternative Examples for Elder Care, a live webcast presented by the Catholic Health Association, the community of Sant'Agdio, and Catholic Charities USA. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jacob, and I will be the operator for the presentation today. Before we get started, I would like to acquaint you with a few features of this web event technology. At any time, you may adjust your audio using any computer volume settings that you may have. Note that you will be muted during this presentation. Please keep yourself muted and disable your camera. To do so, use the buttons in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. There will be opportunities to provide feedback and ask questions during the program. To do so, use the chat module at the bottom of the screen. Your responses will be seen by the entire audience. If you would like to submit a question privately, select the presenter's name using the menu in the chat module. Please note that today's presentation is being recorded and both the recording and slides will be emailed to you. We are joined today by Chris Lowney, Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees for Common Spirit Health, who will be our moderator for today's discussion. At this time, I would like to turn the presentation over to Chris for opening remarks. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jacob. And thanks everybody for joining what is the third webinar of four that are scheduled on this topic. And as you know, this is a joint venture, so to speak, of Catholic Charities USA, the community of Sant'Egidio, and the Catholic Health Association. And in that respect, I think it's a model for the kinds of things that a lot of us are going to have to figure out going forward, namely, how do we figure out how to work together? New kinds of collaborations between parishes, Catholic healthcare, individuals, and so on. Different ways of doing things so we can solve the challenges that are facing us. Let me make one context-setting point, and then we'll turn to prayer and reflection. So the first two of our webinars, you might say, dealt a lot with the why. You know the old mantra, start with why. And so our first two webinars were in many ways about why we need a change of culture, a change in the ways we think, behave, operate with respect to our elderly brothers and sisters. And we drew on some Vatican documents and some of the data, some of the reality of the pandemic in order to help make the case for the why. Now, in this session, we're going to turn very much to the what. What does it look like? What does it look like? Practically, concretely, what are some of the new models, new ideas, or venerable models that help us to perceive how we might begin to create this new culture, this new way of operating that we're all going to have to get after together? We're going to hear about four different models and then have conversation. Before we get into any of that, though, let's begin with some reflection. We all know very well that our efforts and ideas are going to be meaningless without the support and inspiration of God's Holy Spirit. So we appropriately have started each of these seminars with a moment of prayer and reflection. And we're going to have this time a video reflection from Sister Pat Talone. And before we get to that, I'm going to invite Julie Trocchio, my friend and colleague and the Senior Director of Community Benefit and Continuing Care for the Catholic Health Association, to introduce Sister Pat and to introduce the issue that Sister Pat focuses on in her short video. So Julie, please take over.
Thank you, Chris, and welcome everyone. Well, the Vatican document, Old Age, Our Future, which is the basis of this webinar series, talks about how many elderly were abandoned during COVID and how devastating their loneliness can be. But beyond pointing to the problems, the document also tells us that there is another way of looking at old age and treating older people. For our reflection today, listen to the words of the document. The pandemic has produced a twofold awareness. On the one hand, that the interdependence of everyone on each other and greater attention to inequities. We are all in the same storm, but it is increasingly evident that we are on different boats and that the least seaworthy boats are very leaky. Everyone, says the document, is called on, society as a whole, religious organizations, all of us, to put in place a new structure that places the common good of all peoples at its center. At the heart of this new and urgent approach, says the document, is the centrality of the elderly person, knowing that all elderly individuals are different from one another, as are their stories. So why do we need a new approach for older people? And what might it look like? As the Vatican document says, we can learn from their stories. My dear friend, Sister Pat Talone, has taught me throughout the years through stories. And I would like to share one of her stories with you right now.
Many years ago, when I was still in graduate school, I lived in Milwaukee. I was attending Marquette University, and I was part of the Jesu parish, which is also on the campus. I would attend liturgy there, and you got to see, of course, meet a lot of the same people over and over. There was an older woman. I have no idea how old she was, but I know she had very bad osteoporosis. She had to walk with a walker, but her name was Margaret, and Margaret would come every single Sunday to church by public transportation. She lived in a very small studio apartment, and she would just get the bus, come down to church. Then when she got off the bus, she would have to fold up her walker and get herself up the steps. She sat always in the back of church. And at communion time, possibly because of the walker, she was always the last one to walk up to communion. And so you would see her making her way up to communion and just feel the pain of her difficulty with mobility. She put her hand up to receive the Eucharist and then turned it over and put the Eucharist right away into a handkerchief and put it into this cloth bag. And the extraordinary minister was upset about what's happening, spoke to the pastor, thank God. And the pastor, being a wonderful person, said, thank you for telling me, I'll handle this. So within a couple of days, he took himself to Margaret's apartment to visit her and sat down with her, surprised her by his visit, sat down with her and told her he had to discuss something with her and what it was. And as soon as he told her that he was aware of this, she began to cry. On a little shelf above her chair, she had a small, probably a china little box that had a lid on it. And she would come home, and in that box, there would be the host from the week before, the Eucharist. She would receive the week's old Eucharist and put the new one in there. And so she had her own little chapel and tabernacle in her apartment. So God loved this pastor. He explained to her, no, you couldn't do that. You had to get permission from the diocese to have a permanent chapel. And, he said, Margaret, I want to know why you're doing this. And she said to him, every Sunday I go to church and people are so lovely to me and they greet me. And then I come home here and I am here alone in this apartment for an entire week. And I hate being alone. And I thought if I brought Jesus home with me, I would have company and I could talk to him at any time. So that, again, the priest was wonderful and talked to her about the presence of Christ, and the priest was present with her all the time. She could talk with him all the time. And he set up a regimen so that someone in the parish would come to her once in the middle of the week, the Eucharistic minister, so she would be able to receive the Eucharist twice a week. And then the social worker would go another day. She would have a visit from the social worker during the week. And then the social worker ultimately got a group of volunteers who then assisted her with things like shopping, necessary things that she needed where she really needed some assistance. But the whole point was her expressing the loneliness of what it was like to not see other people all week long. and how she felt isolated and the need of reaching out for a community.
Thank you, Sister Pat, for that reflection. Let me bridge into the first couple of presentations we'll have by making one or two observations about what Sister Pat just shared with us. One, in some ways, the centrality of the Lord in finding solutions. Maybe more practically speaking, the sense in which there was a, let's take the trouble to understand what's really happening here. And then the way in which somebody said, well, what can we do to solve the challenge, to help with the challenge? And that's the bridge I guess I want to make to the four specific examples we're going to be hearing about in coming minutes. Each one, in one way or another, is an individual, a group, a congregation, a Catholic Charities branch, taking the trouble to understand what's going on and be entrepreneurial enough, creative enough to try to come up with some way of addressing the need. And we're going to hear about that in action. Two logistical points, and then we'll see a video about Cardinal Ritter Senior Services. Two logistical points first. Our chat box is open throughout, and throughout this series, we've had very vibrant exchange in the chat box. So please take advantage of that. You may have comments. Something you see may spur some of your own reflections. You may have questions, practical questions about how did you do this or how could I do that, or more conceptual questions on one or another thing that you see. And so please make good use of that. My colleague, Ben Wortham, is going to be monitoring the chat box. And when it comes to Q&A time, he will tee up some of the observations and questions that arise. So please make good use of it. Second, logistical comment, just in terms of traffic control, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a short video presentation from Cardinal Ritter Senior Services. And then after that, I'm going to introduce Susan Chill, who's going to talk to us about a program in Chattanooga. And then we're going to break for Q&A after we hear these first two presentations. And Cheryl Trask will represent Cardinal Ritter, and Susan will represent the Chattanooga program. So why don't we start and transition now to our Cardinal Ritter video, and then I'll come back to briefly introduce Susan Chill, who will take us through her project.
I've lived here since April 1975, me and my kids. I moved here, my kids were mostly coming out of school, but they've all grown up and everything. So being at home, I feel so comfortable, you know, that I can just be here, and I feel safe.
A lot of the people we see have no one. Their family lives out of state or they don't have kids. And so there's a lot of limitations that make it very difficult for our seniors to do almost any activity of daily living.
What I experience on a daily basis with individuals aging in place at home is a struggle. They don't want to struggle. They want to live happy, healthy, fulfilled lives, but due to certain circumstances, depending on their living environment, it makes it difficult for them to be able to manage all of these expenses and hardships.
People want to stay in their own homes because when they're in their own environment, they feel comfortable. They worked really hard to own this house. It's a piece of kind of their legacy. And people live longer, actually, if they stay in their homes. And if someone's comfortable, and if we can help make them more comfortable and stay in their home, then we feel like everybody kind of wins.
I had gotten pretty bad the last time I went to the hospital, and they say, you know, you can get a social worker. And I said, really? And I called, and I ended up with Cheryl, and that just was my new family. And And that's how I've been hanging in there. Every time I had problems, I called them. And they were like mother and father to me.
The seniors I'm meeting want someone to listen to them. They want to be treated with dignity and respect. And the important thing that social workers do is advocate for our seniors, for listening to what their needs are and trying to respond. We want them to feel like we're a lifesaver, that we're helping them maintain their independence and live independently in the community.
They reach out to us because usually they're pretty lonely and they need some help from somebody else. And so that's kind of where we step in, and we would go visit them. When we visit a client, we usually like to bring them something that they might need. And it's also a really great way for us to just start building that relationship with the client. So getting the person to trust us is essential for us to be able to make any difference.
The good thing about living in a city is we have lots of resources, but finding them can be absolute burden to someone. Our department connects seniors to resources in the community, and we provide case management to those people so they can stay independent and living in their homes.
They would send people to cut the grass. They did the porch. I don't know what it was that Cardinal Ritter didn't see for people doing for me. It was, it's almost bring tears when I think about 75 or whatever, what I would have done if it hadn't been for Cardinal Ritter. So for me to stay here, it's amazing. It's amazing, I tell you.
If we invest into our seniors now, our future is more promising, of a better, more secure and stable place to live and to reside. And we, in turn, teach our children to also pour into our seniors and also to provide support and to also care for our seniors, that they are vulnerable, yet they should be protected, that they are wise, yet they should be secure. We have to make sure that our elderly community is supported, that they're valued, that they are acknowledged, that they're provided for, and that they're safe.
My favorite part of being a social worker is just being able to learn about other people's lives, people I would never normally get to meet and talk to. And you just learn so much I think you just learn a lot about humanity.
We have to show them that they're important and that their lives have been important, and their knowledge. It's our history. It's just that they bring so much to us if we would take the time to listen.
Thank you to Cardinal Ritter Senior Services. We're going to have a chance to talk to Cheryl Trask, who's very much involved in that program, in a couple of minutes. Before we do that, I'll just pluck out one or two phrases from that video. I'm sure different things struck you. One, the idea of if we invest in our seniors now, and I love this idea of investing. Another quote that really struck me: show them that they're important. Show them that they're important. We're all important. We're not always treated that way. So we're going to have a chance to ask questions. But before we come to Q&A, why don't we move along to our second short presentation? And let me invite Susan Chill to turn on her camera. She's going to present live to us. Susan is the founder and executive director of St. Alexius Outreach Ministries, which is part of the Alexian Brothers suite of ministries. And Susan, if I am correct, was instrumental in conceiving this initiative she's going to talk about. Mission to be part of a team that would be in Chattanooga, understanding what the needs might be and how those needs could best be addressed. And she's going to share with us what she found and what they came up with. So Susan, we're very eager to hear your presentation.
Thank you, Chris. On behalf of the Alexian Brothers, I want to thank you all for giving us this opportunity. This is the newest ministry of the Alexian Brothers. After their merger with Ascension Healthcare, they started to reach out and look for other areas of service. And as they set the gold standard in senior care in the Chattanooga area, we turned and began a discernment process. And I was serving as an ambassador, and we went out and learned and listened to where the gaps and the needs were occurring. And so I have a PowerPoint presentation, if we can pull up, that I can begin with. Thank you. St. Alexis Outreach is the newest ministry of the Alexian Brothers. Our flagship program is Hospitality at Home, and we began serving vulnerable older adults experiencing isolation and loneliness in the fall of 2017. Why we serve. The motto of the Alexian Brothers is "The love of Christ compels us." And for over 800 years, the Alexian Brothers have served the least of the least, seeking to alleviate despair by offering hope and reassurance of God's love by providing hospitality and healing. Community need. A year-long discernment process was conducted to determine where the gaps and needs were occurring within the senior population in the greater Chattanooga area and across the nation and across the world, and how the Alexian Brothers could best assist in alleviating these needs according to their charism. Multiple on-site visits with older adult providers and ongoing research continually pointed to the crippling effects that result from chronic isolation and loneliness. Who we serve. Vulnerable older adults 70 and plus living alone in the greater Chattanooga, Tennessee area who've been identified by a referring agency to be experiencing isolation and loneliness. This hospitality quote over here, I'd been asking God to send me a friend, and then you called. She was one of my first participants, and she's become a very dear friend. Introducing ourselves. Referring agencies bridge the potential participant with our program to bridge the trust of who we are with the following information from us. We understand that in today's world, it can be challenging for older adults to navigate and secure needed resources while developing new and trusted relationships. There are no fees, dues, or membership requirements, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, gender, orientation, disability, religious affiliation, or income. What we offer ongoing friendship. Nurturing volunteers are matched with participants to provide reassurance phone calls and in-home visitations while working alongside the Alexian Brothers and dedicated staff to provide holiday gifts, birthday recognition, minor home repairs, and shopping services. And these are just, we have local schools that are making cards. We have certain holidays we always present on the birthday or the eve of the birthday of our participants. And we have a huge Christmas gift we provide also. Next slide. There we go. Supportive services. The Hospitality at Home social worker plays a vital role in the ongoing development and friendship and trust within this population. They assist in securing and providing needed resources, crisis management, stabilization, and collaboration with the assisting agency. They also work very closely with our volunteers who we've now suspended in-home visitation, although our staff goes in with all COVID protocol. But the social services helps with the educational process of setting boundaries and how to be a nurturing volunteer within this program also. Next slide. Thank you. Our Hospitality at Home assistance today, since the fall of 2017, we've received 140 total referrals. These are coming from Adult Protective Services, from home health care agencies, from physician's office, from those who have seen an individual, 911, we have our fire departments. When they see someone they feel that could benefit from our program, they are referred to us, and then we make that contact with that individual. We've had an ongoing average of 50 participants over the past 2 years, And we have seen that 1/3 of these are from Adult Protective Services due to the fact that they themselves have no referral for self-neglect. If it's not criminally related from an APS call, then the self-neglect area has been fallow and having support there. We call our social worker, when we contact someone, it's a touch point we're making with a participant. And over these past 4 years, 3.5 years, we have had 2,057 case management touch points. And that means direct services, securing utilities, trying to holistically help that individual stabilize. We have had 4,296 volunteer touch points with birthday cards, holidays, phone calls, and we have provided 527 services along with home maintenance, grocery shopping, and utility assistance. So with having a program focused on isolation and loneliness, COVID just has put gas on the fire. And the one thing I've noted is we really had to turn on a dime to help our community. And one of the best things that came out of COVID was the older adult task community force, which we met weekly on, and we're still continuing to meet in order to collaborate most bestly with those stakeholders who provide older adult care. It's been a true blessing. So early in March, there was a cry from the community to say, hey, we need a drop-off center. We need someplace to provide donations of toilet paper and PPE, everything that was, we ourselves were trying to find. And so with funding, we were able to start up our more than food pantry. So we offer emergency foods that are senior-friendly food related. And we also offer household cleaning, personal hygiene, animal pet food, and PPE supplies to those in need. Again, this is a referral from our partnership with the Southeast Area on Aging and Disability and the United Way here in Chattanooga. And we've packed these bags and we have them ready for delivery if the agency can come by, because some agencies use us in that way, or we will home deliver to them also. Next slide. Again, in direct response to COVID-19, the community once again said, we need, while people are in quarantine, they're shut down, we're in shutdown, they lack transportation or mobility to get to the Chattanooga Area Food Bank, what are we going to do? So again, we were able to offer our services. We had an old school bus that we had to shut down a transportation program due to COVID. And we collaborated with the United Way of Chattanooga and the Chattanooga Area Food Bank to start a mobile delivery program. And it has been very successful. We run Monday through Friday. We have a full-time transportation coordinator. And today we deliver 25% of all calls coming in door to door daily. So that's been an amazing program to watch. So we're still growing in this area, and we're very grateful that I think what I learned during the discernment process is the power of what the religious communities bring to our society. And the Alexian brothers and their dedication for over 800 years speaks volumes. And we go in to look for the least of the least in order to show effective and solution-oriented problems that we can address them. And I think we've done that well with this program. So thank you.
Okay, and Susan, thank you very much. So we have just about 5 minutes for some conversation and Q&A. Susan's here, leave your camera on. Could I invite Cheryl to please turn your camera on? And as she's doing that, I will introduce Cheryl formally, since we didn't have a chance to do that before. She's the social service manager at Cardinal Ritter Senior Services, and she's been doing that for a handful of years. But then for, I think about a dozen years before that, was a case manager with Cardinal Ritter. So she brings really a wealth and depth of experience in this area. And let me invite my colleague, Ben Wortham of Catholic Charities, to also turn on his camera. He's been monitoring the chat box for us. Ben helps coordinate Catholic Charities chapters outreach to elderly communities across the US. So let me start with a question. I'll ask you the same question to both of you. I'll invite Cheryl, you to speak first, and then Susan. And the question I want to ask is, so if somebody's watching this and says, oh man, I want to start up just what they're doing, or I don't know exactly what I want to start up, but I want to start up something. How could they go to school on you? In other words, what is the first piece of advice you'd give somebody who wants to think about doing something in this area? Or what was your biggest lesson learned in the course of trying to start or coordinate something like this? Cheryl, do you want to share a thought or two about that question?
Sure. I think what you need to do first is research what you want to do. Make sure that you know what other services are available in the community and how you can build on those services. So if one parish is giving out clothes and another one food, work together with them so you can bring all those needs to the population that you're working with. So just, be aware, research, and, know the resources in your community. I also think it just takes a lot of flexibility and creativity to have any program. And we surely witnessed that with COVID, where, we can't do the home visits like we were doing, but maybe we can do porch drops and drop a bag of groceries or drop some Depends or some toilet paper and paper towels on someone's porch. Maybe we can mail them a card, or, if they need to sign something, mail it to them and send a self-addressed stamped envelope back. Make it easy on them. So just be creative and flexible would also be my suggestion.
Nice, thank you. Susan, same question.
I do agree. Research is really essential. I don't have all the answers. The community offers us a lot of direction in where we were going. I believe that the collaboration that we've seen with our partners, and so many times people say that every nonprofits operate in silos. Well, this opportunity has really broken it down where we can truly collaborate and find new solutions for even government agencies serving older adults. It's time to step back and see what is working. From the religious viewpoint, the value I've seen of living in community is huge. And I know we all seek sometimes that everybody lives independently alone, but that might not always be the most healthy alternative. So what we're trying to do is bring community to them and let them know they're a part of our community and that they are our friends. And basing this on friendship is, I feel like a good way as a dignity approach to address this population.
Great, thank you. We just have about 2 minutes for this first Q&A section. Ben, what are you seeing, hearing? Do you want to offer a question or a comment that you see in the chat box?
Yeah, and this just came through, and thank you to our presenters, and this just came through from Sharon, and it says, did you use some sort of needs assessment survey to find out needs? One need for seniors I get many calls for is transportation to doctor's appointment, etc. So I guess the question would be on a needs assessment survey. If
well,
either of you want to take a shot.
I'm sorry. In the beginning, there was no formal needs assessment. These were really well known. Transportation was highly lacking in our community. So what we did is try to gather all those resources together. So we had to resource and research within our own communities and open those doors for dialogue, and especially regarding these issues of food insecurity and transportation.
Thank you. And I see in the chat box we had a question raised and resolved. So that's a nice bit of collaboration right there. I think I'm going to move us on in the interest of time. I want to be sure our next two presenters also get a chance to share as much, and we get a chance to ask them questions. And let me thank Susan and Cheryl both for the great presentations, but also for the wonderful work you're doing and the role modeling you're giving to us. So in our second round of two, Paola Piscitelli is going to be our first presenter. Paola, I'll invite you to turn on your camera. Paola is known to those of us who've been attending all these webinars. She's the president of the community of Sant'Egidio in the United States, and the community is active in a number of cities with various ministries that serve poor and marginalized population, visiting elders, distributing food to those on the streets, and so on. And any of you who might be interested in their charism or their ministry or joining, I'm sure Paola would be very happy to hear from you and interact with you personally. Paola is going to introduce two short videos. She's going to introduce one, we'll see it, and then she'll introduce another snippet of video. And after that, we'll move on to our second presentation. So Paola, please introduce.
Thank you, Chris, for this introduction. And I'm glad to introduce the video about Long Live the Elderly, which is a program of the community of Sant'Egidio that started in 2004 in response to the shocking mortality peak of 2003, in which thousands of elderly people died in Europe due to the exceptional heat waves of summer 2003. However, we discovered that the supermortality of 2003 was not due only to the fragility of old age, but also to social isolation, which is one of the characteristics of the oldest population. So Long Live the Elderly is an innovative service for fighting social isolation through the creation of networks, which are placed alongside traditional services like home care or residential services. But it has the advantages of being able to reach large groups of population. The main objective of the program is prevention through monitoring the population over 80-year-old. And because in this way, through this monitoring, we can quickly counteract the negative effects of critical events that can happen in everyone's lives, but are particularly serious in old age, like the loss of a partner, a fall, or an epidemic, as we saw in this last year. So the priorities of Long Live the Elderly are reaching out to everyone, overcoming social isolation, and involving neighborhoods in supporting the most fragile people. So in this sense, I will introduce the video on Francesca Scambia, who is one of the founders of the movement, of the program within Sant'Egidio, that will explain better what it's about. The video could start.
Il programma Viva gli Anziani che la comunità di Sant'Egidio ha ideato e anche implementato a partire dalla città di Roma è un programma che vuole rimettere al centro gli anziani. Già la denominazione del programma ci dice molto, Viva gli Anziani, cioè vuole essere prima di tutto un incoraggiamento agli anziani, ma anche dire che gli anziani devono vivere a lungo. Gli anziani devono vivere ed è bello che vivano dentro la nostra società, cioè non separati altrove, in luoghi dove sono in un certo senso concentrati gli anziani, ma in mezzo agli altri. Allora il programma degli anziani lavora proprio nei quartieri. A Roma potremmo dire nei rioni, infatti è cominciato proprio nei rioni di Trastevere, di Monti, rioni storici. E qual è l'opera che il programma compie? È costruire intorno a questi anziani una rete che vuole essere una rete di protezione, potremmo dire una rete che è come una nuova famiglia che si stringe intorno a questi anziani, che oggi, nel mondo di oggi, spesso la famiglia non ce l'hanno, oppure la famiglia è lontana, oppure la famiglia non è in grado di prendersene cura, oppure semplicemente da sola non ce la fa. Allora c'è bisogno di una sinergia all'interno di un quartiere perché gli anziani siano protetti, perché gli anziani ritrovino un posto. Il programma Viva gli Anziani è un monitoraggio attivo, Cioè vuol dire noi gli anziani li andiamo a cercare, perché gli anziani tante volte non sono in grado di cercare i servizi ai quali pure hanno diritto. C'è bisogno di andarli a cercare, di trovarli nelle case, perché faticano ad uscire e devono trovare anche le motivazioni per uscire. Allora la comunità di Sant'Egidio, attraverso questo programma, si avvicina a tutti gli anziani, si avvicina a loro nelle loro case per sostenerli, per fare in modo che possano rimanere nelle loro case e possano rimanerci bene, perché la qualità della loro vita sia una qualità di vita migliore. Gli anziani possono telefonarci, sia per compagnia ma anche per risolvere quei piccoli problemi che nella solitudine tante volte diventano enormi. Prenotare una visita, andare a fare un acquisto che non si sa come fare da soli. E poi nella vita degli anziani succedono dei fatti drammatici che alle volte segnano proprio un cambiamento profondo. Pensiamo alla morte del coniuge, pensiamo quando gli anziani per esempio cadono e si rompono il femore. Allora è come se la loro vita precipitasse e bisogna dargli questa rete perché gli anziani non cadano definitivamente. E questo programma è questo. È una rete a cui gli anziani possono aggrapparsi, trovare sostegno e spesso, in molti casi, proprio ritrovare la voglia di vivere. Infatti tanti anziani sono coinvolti direttamente nel programma, cioè ci aiutano. E parliamo proprio di quell'invecchiamento attivo però nel sostenere gli altri, non attivo solamente per se stessi, ma attivo nel senso di ritrovare una propria funzione all'interno della società, rendendosi utili per gli altri. Ecco, quindi il programma degli anziani ristabilisce quei legami, quella rete, quella protezione, rimette al centro gli anziani perché in un condominio tutti si accorgano di chi è più vecchio, di chi ha bisogno di una mano e in fondo con un piccolo aiuto si può fare in modo che questi anziani vivano nelle loro case e vivano bene. Questo è il lavoro che la comunità di Sant'Egidio ha sviluppato in tanti anni e che sta dando frutti veramente, direi, preziosi per la vita degli anziani e non solo. E quindi noi vogliamo dire insieme, per una volta, viva gli anziani.
Thank you to Francesca for this introduction, and we now will hear briefly from the world of an elderly who is person who is a host who is participating in the program. She's from Rome, but she speaks English, so she will speak directly to us about the effect of this program during her life and even this last year. Arnalda as the voice.
My name is Arnalda, and I'm 88 years old, an old lady. I live alone in a small apartment, but with 2 cats. I receive regular phone calls, visits at home, and assistance from the program for the elderly people. In this time of COVID, all the volunteers of the program brought us to the vaccination points. I'm very happy to be part of this program. I'm never alone or forgotten.
Wow, what a testimony from Arnalda. Just, I mean, the English language skills alone blew me away. So thank you, Paola. We're going to have a chance in a few minutes to ask you further questions about this program. But before we do that, let's hear our fourth and final program presentation for today. Let me invite Linda Chatterton to turn on her camera. And she's the Home Visitation Program Manager and also manages the Friendly Phones program for Catholic Charities, the Diocese of Buffalo. Linda, let me invite you to please share with us your presentation, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions and comments to both Paola and Linda. And so those of you who are listening, please use the chat box to share what questions and thoughts are coming to your mind. So let's move to Linda's presentation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Linda Chatterton of Catholic Charities of Buffalo. I'm the program manager for the Home Visitation and Friendly Phones programs. I'm here to share our Home Visitation program, which is funded by the Muriel Marshall Fund. It's a private grant created by Roxanne Marshall in memory of her mother, who saw a need in the community, a small rural county, for seniors who had needs that were going unmet. It's a small budget that we operate on, and the annual grant must be reapplied for yearly. Home visitation is provided as a way of reducing isolation and loneliness for homebound adults age 60 or older who live independently in our Genesee County. It's to delay or prevent the need for a higher level of care and increase the quality of life for those we serve. The Homebound Visitation program is free. It's a 1-hour social visit to isolated homebound seniors whose social circles have grown smaller. It is volunteer-based, and we match based on mutual likes and interests, and we try to match veterans with veterans. And during the intake, we do take very little personal information, which makes our seniors much more comfortable. This is a sample list of our intake questions, which ultimately it does end up being about a 4-page application that I complete with them. During the intake process, I do go to their home and do a small, brief home inspection, and that's just to make sure that the home is safe for a volunteer to visit. If it does not appear to be a safe environment, I would probably ask if the person is interested in phone visits. Volunteers are background checked, they're reference checked, and they're trained. Trainings include 1.5 to 2 hours worth of training on boundaries, respectful and positive communication, what to look for with abuse. The volunteers are trained on how to complete the reports, which are expected to be completed with each visit. They have ongoing trainings, which are quarterly, and then that information is also asked to be shared and passed along as needed to each person they visit. Volunteers do not provide transportation, medical assistance of any kind, no banking, no housekeeping, or personal care. We are not intended as a respite service, so if someone is looking, we can provide linkage and referral. So how do we achieve the goals? The volunteers plan and prepare stimulating and engaging activities. They're mostly outgoing people themselves, so it's easy for them to do. They monitor for health and safety and report back to us any concerns or needs that the person may have. They complete weekly visit forms that keep us up to date, and if there are immediate concerns, they call us, the staff. This is the volunteer visit form, and you can review them and look at it to see what they're filling out every week. Visitors become like family. Some matches have been together. Our longest is 8 years. Visitors have been described as rays of sunshine, sons and daughters, and in return, the volunteers describe the people that they visit as friends and do not like to call them members or clients. We do regular ongoing surveys, and that's how we get this information a lot of times, or it's through our regular phone conversations that we have with individuals. The home visitation program works closely with various agencies in the area, and that's where a lot of our referrals come from, or they're self-referred. We've assisted with many different things in order to keep people independent in their home, and I would say I may not have all the answers, but I'm certainly going to try. This is our Marshall funded programs, our other ones that were created by Roxanne Marshall, and you can go to this website and obtain more information on them. They're all wonderful. I have worked in this program for almost 5 years, and during this time we've had at least 3 people literally saved as a result of the visitors being there for them and walking through their door. Tears have been shed while volunteers have sat by the bedside and held the hand of their dying friend. But more than anything, friendships have been built and so many smiles brought to their faces. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever done as a social worker, and I refuse to call it my job. It is my joy. And once again, I'm Linda Chatterton, and this is how you can contact me if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Let me invite Linda Ben and Paula to have their cameras on. Let me apologize, folks. I know a lot of folks had trouble listening. Unfortunately, the PowerPoint presentation was pre-recorded, so there's not much we were able to do to adjust the volume, and I'm sorry for that. Maybe in our Q&A, we'll be able to elicit a couple of the important details of what Linda's doing. So like last time, let me start the questioning myself. And Linda, let me start with you. And let me invite you to turn both your camera and your microphone on. It looks like you're muted. And Linda, let me invite you to tell us what's been a key lesson learned in the course of this work that you think might be valuable to others who are doing this kind of work or who might want to think about this sort of work. And Paula, I'm going to ask you the same question right after so you could prepare. Linda.
A lesson learned is to definitely know your resources in your community, to network and be present in your community. The important thing is making those connections with other professionals. They are the foundation basically for you to support those seniors that you serve. And then you'll have those other connections to bounce off of when you have a need come in. So that's the most important thing, making yourself known.
And before Paula speaks, let me ask you another one, Linda, because not everybody could hear. So of the various moving parts of your program, fortunately, there was good text in the presentation, we could see it. But of the various parts of the program, which piece of it do you think in the end is most important and most impactful?
It's just the one-to-one visits, walking through the door. We did have to flip the home visits during COVID to phone visits, and our clients are so appreciative, but we also have those who are hard of hearing or maybe have advancing dementia that can't talk on the phone. So I'm working very hard to get our program restarted now that we're having vaccines come in play. But people really love to see other people. This is a generation that grew up literally knocking on their neighbor's door and talking to them face to face and seeing family. The technology is wonderful, but it never replaces the human person visiting. And then just having them, the volunteers, checking in on them regularly. Because we've, like I said, in the end, we really have had lives saved.
Great, thank you. Paula, could you share with us some lesson learned or some piece of advice for others who might want to start a program like the one you described for us or do similar work?
Thank you. Yes, I mean, in a way, the advice is like similar also to what Susan and Sherry shared before, in the sense of identifies both the population that you want to serve and the resources. I mean, what are the possible allies in this work? But one lesson I'm surprised that I would like to share is really the big resources that are the elderly themselves, in the sense that the elderly that we identify and visit become then active part of the program, because they are often at home, they are happy to work on things, and they enjoying that, in the sense that they have plenty of time and skills, sometimes also that can be of advantage to everyone. So I think that one lesson is never underestimate what can come from, you know, the idea of serving someone and instead finding allies in your service. So that's my piece of advice.
Yeah, thanks for that. And that the last thing you say captures one theme in the Vatican document we introduced in webinar 1, and that has been important in this work. In other words, to think of our elderly brothers and sisters as agents, so to speak, those who have things to contribute and value to add here. So thanks for that. Ben, you've been watching the chat. You have any questions or comments you want to pass along to either of our two presenters?
Yeah, there's been some comments, questions, and then a couple of direct questions to me. I think we'll start with just a simple one of, do you see a role for parishes in your work?
Our program was actually started in a parish before Catholic Charities took over. So they are definitely encouraged. We have regular contact with them. Ours are more social visits, and we try not to interject politics, religion, things like that. But if people are interested, when I do the intakes and they want a religion connection, I try to match them with a like religion. We offer to find someone to come into the home with the Eucharist. So it's certainly not something that just because this is a social visit that we discourage. We want everyone to be at their need. We have homebound seniors that we've had parishes connect us with. And we actually had one woman who was homebound, had been going to church, so she lost that sense of community. And when her volunteer came at the end of the visit, they did a prayer together, and so her volunteer has become her community of church and prayer. So it was just a wonderful way of explaining it to people how the program can work based on their need.
Paula, the program you profiled, is that the kind of thing that a parish could decide to take on as a project within their own parish boundaries or beyond?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. I think that would be great if, you know, a parish would start one of those, and certainly the parish can be involved in whatever network and whoever decide to do this program, because as I said, we need allies, and volunteers and people from the parish are definitely part and can be definitely part of this program, together with other, you know, religious entities. So definitely yes.
Okay, Ben, we're really pushing against time. If you have one other real quick one, please share it with us.
Yeah,
question or comment.
This one just came through. Some of you may have seen it, but it's about just to share a way or ways that you recruit volunteers, and then in the comment, other than parish bulletins.
Okay.
We work a lot with our local office for the aging, doing outreach and also locating other events in the community. Farm stands, we go to the local food bank drives, and we hand out brochures there. We are on many different types of senior meeting resources, such as interagency, long-term care council. And we are constantly just searching for volunteers that way.
Paula, same question, if you have a quick answer.
All of the above, plus I would say word of mouth, that works. You know, it still works because, you know, friendly connection and personal invitation, it's always the strongest way to have people involved.
Yeah, let me make two quick comments, then I'm going to wrap up on this issue of volunteers. There's obviously a lot of wisdom in this room right now on that question, because a lot of these all the programs we heard about today, and many of the programs you folks represent rely on volunteers. So please tell us in the chat box, here's some secret sauce that we have. And I pick up on one comment that Melissa Kelly made. There's nothing like personal invitation, and Paula said this as well, huh? I mean, everybody responds better to, can you help me because I think you could do this, as opposed to here's something printed in a bulletin. Okay, we promise a crisp hour, so I'm going to thank Paula and Linda and Cheryl and Susan, and now let's wrap up. We have one or two or three quick tasks. One is, please put our final session in your calendar. It will be May 26th. And there will also be a link for an evaluation. Please do that. And you will also see a couple of email addresses come up, and you're invited to share your thoughts and your comments. And, you know, we're going into a phase where, you know, we're going to be nearing the end of this webinar series, but shocking though it may be to hear, we have not yet changed the entire culture of the United States of America. So we still have another 330 or 40 million people to go. And so please, by email, by chat, help us to imagine what might be future phases of this work beyond webinars or more webinars. Please share your ideas. That's the only way we're going to get there. So I will finish. Thank you all for participating. But please do go to the chat box, complete the evaluation, and share ideas you have either for the fourth webinar, but also how we carry this work forward in the future. And thanks so much for taking a valuable hour of your busy day for being with us.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Chris. On behalf of the community of Sant Ajdio and Catholic Charities USA and the Catholic Health Association of the United States, I would like to thank you for participating in today's event. The recording will be emailed and will be posted on CHA's website at chausa.org. Again, please take a moment to complete the survey by clicking the link in the chat box. Today's program is copyright 2021 by the Catholic Health Association with all rights reserved. This does conclude today's program. Thank you and have a great day.